7 years hunting the wrong enemy. 53 bodies buried on a lie. Until a sick child pointed at a portrait and says the impossible. Sir, this girl lived with me in the orphanage. The Mafia boss's blood ran cold. Before we get into the story, don't forget to subscribe. We share new stories here every day, and you won't want to miss any of them. Also, tell me in the comments which country you're watching from. I love seeing where everyone's tuning in. Now, let's begin. Leonard Fleming's empire was forged in vengeance. The most feared name across 3 states. A man who turned grief into a weapon and wielded it without mercy. It had been 7 years. 7 years since the fire consumed his world. His wife Elena, dead. His daughter Olivia, just 8 years old, reduced to memory and paint. Her portrait hung above his study fireplace like a patron saint of rage, her innocent smile watching over the monster her death had created. Then came the sound that shattered 7 years of certainty. Maria, his new housekeeper, apologizing frantically. Her son Charles, feverish with flu, had wandered from the kitchen where she'd hidden him. The 12-year-old stood in Leonard's private sanctuary, trembling not with fear, but with confusion. His eyes were locked on the portrait, his small finger pointing upward, and with the innocence only a child possesses, he spoke words that detonated Leonard's entire reality. Sir, this girl. Her name was Lily. She lived with me at the orphanage. And before we dive in, where in the world are you watching from today? Let me know in the comments. Enjoy the story. A forgotten portrait held the key to 7 years of bloodshed. Leonard Fleming believed his daughter perished in flames, but his housekeeper's son recognized the face that haunted a kingpin's nightmares. The study of Fleming Manor was a tomb dressed in luxury. Dark wood paneling swallowed the afternoon light. Leather chairs sat untouched, positioned for meetings that ended in death sentences. The scent of aged whiskey and Cuban cigars clung to the air like ghosts. Leonard stood at his desk, reviewing surveillance photos of his next target, when Maria's terrified voice broke through his concentration. It was the anniversary, 7 years to the day. 7 years since Leonard declared war on the rival family he held responsible for the fire. 53 men dead, an entire bloodline nearly erased, all for the daughter he believed was Ash. But Charles knew different, and his innocent words were about to unravel the most elaborate betrayal Leonard had ever faced, one orchestrated by the men he trusted most. Victor arrived within 20 minutes. Leonard's most trusted enforcer for 15 years, the man who'd helped execute the 7-year war. He found his boss standing motionless before the portrait, a 12-year-old boy on the leather sofa clutching a mug of hot chocolate, and Maria pressed against the doorframe like she wanted to disappear into the wood. Victor. Leonard's voice was controlled, but his hands betrayed him, white-knuckled fists at his sides. Sit. Listen. Charles's trembling eased as Leonard lowered himself into the chair across from him, forcing his features into something less predatory. Interrogation mode, but gentle. Tell us about Lily. Start from the beginning. The boy's words tumbled out. A girl arriving at St. Catherine's Orphanage when she was 8. A man in an expensive suit, dark, tailored, the kind Leonard himself wore, telling the nuns she'd been orphaned in a house fire. She never talked about before, Charles said, his voice small. Never said her real name, but she had nightmares. Every night for the first year she'd scream for her papa. Leonard's throat tightened. Victor leaned forward, calculating. And breakfast, Charles continued, warming to the memory. She always saved me the strawberries from her plate. She said she didn't like them, but I think she was just being nice. She knew they were my favorite. The room tilted. Olivia had hated strawberries, said they were too sour. She'd always pushed them to the side. She had this stuffed rabbit, Charles said suddenly. Gray, with one torn ear. She called it Buttons and wouldn't let anyone touch it, said her papa gave it to her. But she couldn't remember his face anymore. His voice dropped. It made her cry. Leonard stood so abruptly his chair scraped across hardwood. He crossed to his desk, hands shaking as he unlocked the bottom drawer with the key he wore around his neck. Inside, beneath legal documents and a loaded pistol, lay a photograph. 5-year-old Olivia, gap-toothed and laughing, clutching a gray rabbit with a torn ear. This? His voice broke on the word. Charles's face lit up. Yes, that's Buttons! She carried him everywhere! The photograph slipped from Leonard's fingers. Victor caught it, studied it, then looked at his boss with dawning horror. 7 years. 53 bodies, all for a daughter who might be alive. Did she? Leonard steadied himself against the desk. Did she ever mention birthdays? Food she liked? Charles nodded eagerly. She loved lemon things. Sister Agnes made her a lemon tart once for her birthday, and Lily cried so hard she couldn't eat it. Wouldn't say why. He paused. And she drew pictures in art class. Always the same thing, a big house with a garden full of roses. She said she dreamed about it but didn't know if it was real. The rose garden. Leonard had planted it the year Olivia was born, Elena's design, Olivia's playground. These weren't details from news reports. These were fragments of his daughter's soul, scattered across 7 years of captivity. Maria's fear had transformed into stunned realization. Victor watched his boss crumble, the most dangerous man in 3 states reduced to a father grasping at impossible hope. Tell me everything. Leonard's voice shattered on the words. Every single thing you remember about Lily. Charles set down his mug, thinking hard. She used to hum this song at night when she couldn't sleep. Always the same tune. It made the other kids feel better when they had bad dreams. He began to hum, soft and uncertain. Leonard's legs gave out. He sank into his chair, face drained of color. The lullaby. Elena's lullaby. The one she'd sung to Olivia every night since birth. A melody never recorded, never shared beyond their bedroom walls. Victor's hand found his boss's shoulder as Leonard stared at the portrait of the daughter he'd believed was Ash. She was alive, and someone had stolen 7 years from both of them. 3 hours passed like 3 lifetimes. Victor returned to find Leonard standing at the study window, a statue carved from guilt and rage. Beyond the glass, the rose garden bloomed in twilight shadows. Elena's design, Olivia's memories, now evidence of a truth that made his stomach turn. An untouched whiskey sat on the desk, amber liquid catching the last rays of sunlight. He'd poured it, couldn't drink it. 53 faces haunted the space between glass and lips. Boss, Victor's voice carried the weight of bad news. St. Catherine's burned down 8 months ago. Leonard didn't turn. Electrical fire? That's what they're calling it. All records destroyed. The diocese says the orphanage kept minimal documentation anyway. Victor paused. It was privately funded. By whom? The question came out sharp as a blade. Victor's hesitation spoke volumes. In 15 years, the man had never been afraid to deliver bad news. Until now. I traced it through 3 shell corporations. It wasn't easy. Someone knew how to hide money. He pulled out a folder, hands steady despite the tremor in his voice. Final ownership, Castellano Industries. The name detonated in Leonard's chest. Marcus Castellano, his right hand, his brother in everything but blood. The man who'd stood beside him at Elena's funeral with a hand on his shoulder, whispering promises of vengeance. The man who'd brought the evidence, photographs, witness testimony, irrefutable proof that pointed to the rival family. The man who'd helped plan every strike, every execution, every step of the 7-year war. All of it a lie. Leonard's arm swept across the desk. Files exploded into the air. The whiskey glass shattered against the wall. Papers fluttered down like dying birds. Then silence. The terrifying, absolute silence that Victor recognized from 100 executions. People died when Leonard got quiet. Find him. Leonard's voice was a frozen lake, beautiful and deadly. Bring him to me, alive. He's on vacation. Been gone 2 weeks. Some island. I don't care if he's on the moon. Find him. Victor nodded and turned to leave, but Leonard's mind was already spiraling backward. Marcus at the funeral, gripping his shoulder as Leonard stared at 2 caskets. We'll make them pay, brother. I promise you. Marcus presenting the evidence 3 weeks later, his face grim with manufactured righteousness. Marcus helping plan the first strike, the first body, the first step into hell. And the ring. The ruby and platinum brotherhood ring Leonard had given him 10 years ago. A symbol of unbreakable loyalty. All of it orchestrated. All of it theater. 53 men. Leonard's words fell into the silence like stones into a grave. 53 families destroyed. Children orphaned. A war across 3 states. He finally turned from the window, and Victor saw something worse than rage in his boss's eyes. Devastation. All for a daughter who was alive. Boss, if this is true, if she's really... Then I've become the monster she would fear. Leonard's voice cracked on the admission. When she finds out what I've done, what I became, she'll hate me, and she should. Maria cleared her throat from the doorway, Charles beside her. The boy looked smaller now. Understanding he'd stepped into something far larger than a simple recognition, Leonard crossed to him, kneeling to meet his eyes. Charles, when did you last see Lily? Last September, a new director came to the orphanage. Lily saw him through the window and... Charles's voice dropped. She was terrified, sir. She told me he was dangerous, that she had to run. Did she say where she'd go? The boy bit his lip, remembering. She said she'd go where the ships sleep. I didn't understand what she meant. But Leonard did. The old shipyard. Abandoned for a decade, rotting on the waterfront. The place he used to take 5-year-old Olivia to watch the cargo boats, where she'd point at the docked vessels and say, Papa, look, the ships are sleeping. Even with her memory fractured, even after 7 years, his daughter remembered. Leonard stood, purpose replacing devastation. Victor, the shipyard, now! His daughter was alive, and he was going to bring her home. The armory smelled of gun oil and old violence. Leonard moved with mechanical precision, loading magazines, checking safeties, strapping a knife to his ankle. Victor assembled 6 men in the hallway, the best, the loyal, the ones who'd follow him into hell without question. In the kitchen, Maria held Charles close while 2 guards stood watch. Protection. Insurance. Leonard couldn't risk losing the boy who'd given him back his daughter. Dawn crept toward the horizon as Leonard's convoy cut through sleeping streets. He drove alone in the lead car, retracing routes he hadn't taken in a decade. Past the old neighborhood, past the park where Olivia learned to ride a bike, past the corner store where she'd beg for strawberry ice cream she'd never eat. The memory hit him like a bullet. 5-year-old Olivia pressed against the chain-link fence, eyes wide with wonder at the massive cargo ships. Papa, they're like sleeping giants. And when the vessels docked, engines silenced, she'd tug his hand. Look, Papa, the ships are sleeping now. The shipyard had been abandoned for years, rusted hulls and rotting wood, a graveyard of commerce, perfect for hiding, perfect for a girl whose memory was fractured but not destroyed. Even broken, she'd remembered. 50 miles away, Marcus Castellano discovered his island vacation was a lie. Victor's men found him at a mountain estate, dragged him to the warehouse where Leonard conducted his darkest business. He entered with manufactured confidence, smile already fading at the expression waiting for him. Boss, what's this about? I told you I needed... Tell me about St. Catherine's Orphanage. Marcus's face drained to ash. 5 seconds of strangled silence stretched like hours, then a laugh forced and hollow. I don't know what you're talking about. Leonard circled him like a predator. Charles mentioned something interesting. The new director who came to the orphanage last September. The one who terrified my daughter so badly, she ran. He stopped, eyes boring into Marcus. He wore a ring. Big. Red stone. Ruby set in platinum. Marcus's hand instinctively covered his left ring finger. The Brotherhood ring. Leonard's gift from 10 years ago. Sister Agnes cried when she saw it, Leonard continued, voice like frozen steel. My daughter recognized danger in a piece of jewelry I gave you as a symbol of loyalty. Poetic, isn't it? The false confidence shattered. Marcus stumbled back, hands raised. Leonard, listen. Your wife found the books. The words exploded from Marcus like a confession ripped from his chest. She knew about the money laundering, the offshore accounts. She was going to the FBI. She would have destroyed everything. So you killed her? Not a question. A death sentence. I couldn't kill a child. I swear I put Olivia somewhere safe. I was going to bring her back when things settled, but you— Marcus's voice cracked. You went insane. 53 bodies, Leonard. The FBI was everywhere. I couldn't risk it. I had to wait. Leonard's gun materialized, pressed against Marcus's forehead. Where is she now? I don't know. Panic flooded Marcus's features. She ran from the orphanage. The director I sent to move her, she was gone. I've had people searching for 8 months. No trace. Nothing. Every instinct screamed to pull the trigger, to paint the walls with the man who'd stolen 7 years, who'd killed Elena, who'd turned him into a monster. Leonard's finger tightened. Boss. Victor's hand on his shoulder. We need him. If you want to clear your name, prove what happened, we need him alive. Leonard's jaw clenched. The gun didn't waver. Then, slowly, he lowered it. Tie him up. If I don't find her, he doesn't leave this building. Dawn broke over the waterfront in ribbons of gold and crimson. The shipyard rose from the water like a rusted skeleton, metal bones picked clean by time and neglect. Victor's team fanned out through the maze of buildings. Leonard walked alone toward the old foreman's office, pulled by something beyond logic. Instinct, hope, desperation. The door hung crooked on broken hinges. Inside, evidence of life. Scattered belongings, makeshift shelter, the ghost of his daughter surviving in the shadows. Someone had been here. Someone might still be. Leonard entered with his weapon raised, scanning corners like he'd done 1,000 times before. But this wasn't a raid. This was archaeology. Evidence of survival littered the space. Blankets bundled in the corner, food wrappers from convenience stores, library books stacked against the wall. Clothes hung on a wire stretched between rusted pipes. Someone had built a life here, hidden, invisible. Then he saw the drawings. Pinned to the wall like a timeline of loss, they tracked 7 years in crayon and pencil. Leonard's hands shook as he studied each one. The early drawings were childish, stick figures labeled Papa and Mama in unsteady letters, a house with a garden, a gray rabbit. The middle years showed evolution and erosion, more detailed landscapes, but the faces had become empty circles. She was forgetting. The recent drawings struck him like hammer blows, the shipyard rendered in careful detail, the mansion's rose garden recreated from fractured memory, and one dated last week, a girl standing alone at the water's edge, staring at nothing. Footsteps scraped behind him. Leonard spun, weapon raised, finger on the trigger, then froze. A girl stood in the doorway, 15 years old, too thin, wearing clothes that didn't fit. But she had Elena's hazel eyes, his dark hair, and beneath 7 years of fear and survival, Olivia's smile, hidden but not destroyed. She clutched the gray rabbit against her chest, worn and patched but still recognizable. Papa? The word came out uncertain, like she was testing reality. Leonard's weapon clattered to the floor. Olivia. She didn't move. 7 years of lies had taught her caution. 7 years of being told her father was dead, or worse, a monster she should fear. Leonard sank to his knees, making himself small, non-threatening. Tears carved tracks down his face. I've been looking for you. They told me. I thought you died in the fire. They told me you were dead too, her voice broke. That no one wanted me, that I was alone. The rabbit fell from her hands. She ran. Leonard caught her, and they both shattered. 7 years of grief and terror and loneliness poured out in sobs that echoed through the rusted bones of sleeping ships. He held his daughter like she might disappear, and she clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a world built on lies. The story came in fragments. Waking in a hospital, burns on her arms, a man with a ruby ring telling her everyone she loved was dead. St. Catherine's Orphanage. A new name, Lily, for safety. Being told her father was dangerous, that she had to hide. Years of nightmares where faces blurred and faded. Only buttons and broken memories kept her tethered to a past she couldn't fully recall. Last September, she whispered against his chest. A new director came. I saw his eyes and knew. I told Charles I had to go where the ships sleep. Her fingers twisted in Leonard's jacket. I've been here 8 months, stealing food, hiding. I was so afraid, Papa. I remembered the roses. I remembered your voice reading to me. But I didn't know if any of it was real or just dreams. Leonard's phone buzzed. Victor's text. Castellano trying to deal, says he has evidence. Ice flooded Leonard's veins. Marcus knew they were close. If he escaped, if he made a deal, Olivia would never be safe. Leonard pulled back, studying his daughter's face. Older, haunted, but alive. Stay with me. I won't let anyone hurt you again. He called Victor. Get Sister Agnes. Protective custody, now, and double the guards on Castellano. Olivia's grip tightened. Papa, there's something else. Her voice dropped to a terrified whisper. The man with the ring. He wasn't alone. Leonard went still. What do you mean? There was another man. He came to the orphanage sometimes. Older. They spoke Italian together. Her eyes widened with remembered fear. He called the ring man brother. Marcus had a partner. The betrayal went deeper than Leonard imagined. A quarter-mile away, hidden in the shadow of a condemned warehouse, a figure lowered binoculars. Salvatore Romano watched Leonard Fleming embrace the ghost he'd helped create and reached for his phone. The game had changed, but it wasn't over. The safe house sat in industrial territory Leonard owned through 6 layers of shell companies. Marcus didn't know about it. Couldn't know. Victor's team moved like shadows, setting up surveillance, reinforcing entry points, transforming the warehouse into a fortress. Maria and Charles arrived under armed escort, and the reunion between the boy and Lily felt like watching a miracle. Charles hugged her tight, crying, proof that she was real and alive, and home. Leonard watched from the side room, his mind churning through Olivia's revelation. Another man, a partner in the conspiracy. He called in a sketch artist. Olivia sat under harsh fluorescent light, describing fragments of memory. Older than the ring man, silver hair, always perfect, expensive suits, dark, tailored, her brow furrowed with concentration. He came 3 times that I remember. They spoke Italian together. I didn't understand, but the sound stayed with me, and his watch, her fingers traced an invisible circle on her wrist. It caught the sunlight. I saw engraving but couldn't read it. He called the ring man Fratello. Brother. The sketch emerged line by line. Familiar features materialized like a ghost taking form. Leonard's stomach dropped into a bottomless pit. Salvatore Romano, his underboss, second in command for 15 years. The man who'd helped execute every strike in the revenge war. The man Leonard trusted to rebuild territory after each bloody victory. The watch. Leonard had given it to him 15 years ago, engraved with words that now felt like mockery. Loyalty above all. Victor. Leonard's voice came out hollow. Pull everything on Salvatore. Shell companies, bank accounts, every signature. 20 minutes later, Victor returned with evidence that rewrote history. Both Marcus and Salvatore's signatures woven through offshore accounts. Money siphoned from Leonard's empire for years, building something parallel and hidden. St. Catherine's was just one piece. The revenge war had served dual purposes: eliminate competition and keep Leonard distracted, blind, useful. Every rival they'd killed made Marcus and Salvatore more powerful. Boss? Victor pulled up a video call. Sister Agnes appeared on screen, face gaunt with years of fear. Tell him what you told me. The nun's testimony cracked like breaking glass, both men visiting Olivia over the years. Conversations in Italian she'd overheard. When the time is right. The plan crystallizing through her words. Keep Olivia hidden until Leonard died or went to prison, then reveal her, use her as leverage to take over the entire organization. She was never safe, Sister Agnes whispered. They were keeping her as a weapon. Then the final revelation. Your wife didn't just find money laundering records, she found proof of a coup. Marcus and Salvatore were planning to overthrow you. The nun's eyes welled with tears. The fire was meant to kill you both. Olivia surviving was an accident. Marcus had to improvise. 53 innocent people, dead to cover a conspiracy. The rival family nothing more than convenient scapegoats. Leonard's empire built on the corpses of victims, not villains. Maria watched from the doorway as Leonard gripped the table, knuckles white, the weight of 7 years crushing down on shoulders that had carried violence like a crown. Victor's phone buzzed. His face went pale. Boss, Salvatore's disappeared. Last known location was near St. Catherine's ruins. He's destroying evidence. Leonard straightened, predator instincts overriding grief. Tying up loose ends. There's more. Victor's voice dropped. He knows about this location. Someone on my team. The lights died. Backup generators should have kicked in. Silence stretched for 2 seconds. Then Victor's roar. Breach! Breach! Positions! Gunfire erupted outside like thunder. Leonard lunged for Olivia, pulling her behind him as his team returned fire. Charles and Maria hit the floor. Windows shattered inward, smoke grenades tumbling through gaps in their fortress. Through the chaos, amplified and cold, Salvatore's voice echoed from a loudspeaker outside. Leonard, send out the girl and your men live. You've already lost 53 for her. How many more need to die? Leonard's gun was in his hand, Olivia pressed against his back, and the traitor who'd stolen 7 years was demanding he surrender the daughter he'd just found. Not again, never again. Stay behind me, he growled. I won't lose you twice. The panic room door gleamed like salvation, reinforced steel hidden behind a false wall in the basement. Leonard shoved Olivia toward it, Maria already pulling Charles inside. No! Olivia grabbed his arm. I won't lose you again either. Leonard's chest tightened. I can't fight if I'm worrying about you, please. Their eyes met, 7 years of separation in that look. She nodded, tears streaming, and disappeared behind steel. Victor crouched at the window, counting. 12 hostiles, professional, Salvatore's in the armored vehicle. 8 defenders, outnumbered. Leonard's mind catalogued positions, angles, weaknesses. This was a war he'd helped create, every tactical instinct honed by revenge that had been a lie. The radio crackled. Salvatore's voice, smooth as poison. You've had your revenge, Leonard. Retire. Keep the mansion. Keep your money, just walk away. Leonard's finger found the transmit button. You killed my wife, tortured my daughter for 7 years. Salvatore's laugh cut like broken glass. Your wife would have destroyed everything. Olivia was insurance. A pause. Besides, you've killed 53 men for nothing. What's a few more bodies? The weight of those deaths pressed down. 53 lives, 53 families, all for a manufactured war. Victor's hand on his shoulder. Boss, they used your grief as a weapon. Leonard met his lieutenant's eyes. 2 choices. Die here or fight for the future, for Olivia. We're not dying today, Leonard said, but we're not killing unless we have to. Disable and disarm. FBI's already coming. They moved like surgical instruments, foam rounds, tasers, precision strikes that neutralized without killing. Each attacker down was proof he could be more than the monster they'd made him. Then chaos fractured further. Marcus stumbled through the smoke, hands raised, carrying a USB drive like an offering. I can't undo what I did, but I can make sure he doesn't win. Leonard's gun rose. You killed my wife. I know. Marcus's voice cracked. That's why I'm giving you this before I turn myself in. Everything, every account, every crime, every planned murder. Marcus hijacked the radio frequency. His voice boomed to Salvatore's mercenaries. He's planning to eliminate you all after this. Your loose ends. Check your accounts. The termination bonuses are already withdrawn. Salvatore's screams cut through the channel, but his men were already retreating, doubt spreading like wildfire. The armored vehicle door slammed. Salvatore emerged. Abandoning strategy for rage, 15 years of planning crumbling into ash, they met in the main hall, both armed, both knowing only one would walk away unchanged. I made you, Salvatore's face twisted. After your father died, I built you into what you are. Leonard's voice came cold and clear. You made me a murderer. I'm choosing to be a father instead. Salvatore's weapon rose. Leonard's shot came faster, disarming strike to the shoulder. Salvatore fell, scrabbling for his backup piece. Papa, don't! Olivia's voice shattered the moment. Don't be what they made you. Leonard's hand trembled on the trigger. The old Leonard would have finished it, the Leonard who'd burned through 7 years of vengeance without hesitation. He lowered the gun. You're right. I'm done being that man. FBI sirens wailed in the distance. Victor had called them an hour ago. Salvatore laughed through pain. You think you can walk away? With your record? You'll die in prison. I know. Leonard's voice stayed steady. But my daughter will be free. That's all that matters. The panic room door burst open. Olivia ran to him as red and blue lights painted the walls. She crashed into his arms, and Leonard held his daughter as the life he'd known ended, and the one he'd choose began. Red and blue lights painted the safe house like a crime scene tableau. Leonard knelt, hands behind his head, surrendering to the swarm of FBI agents. No resistance, no final stand, just quiet acceptance. Papa! Olivia's scream cut through the chaos. Maria held her back as agents snapped handcuffs around Leonard's wrists. Victor and his team were already in custody. Salvatore and Marcus loaded into separate vehicles, the conspiracy finally exposed. The USB drive held 15 years of betrayal in digital form. Bank records, emails, recorded conversations plotting the coup, orchestrating the fire, manipulating Leonard's grief into a weapon. Sister Agnes's testimony corroborated every damning detail. In the interrogation room, the FBI agent slid papers across the table. Testify against them. We'll reduce your sentence. Leonard pushed them back. I killed 53 people. I don't deserve a deal. The agent's expression softened with something like respect. You were manipulated, but you're right. You pulled the triggers. Then here's my negotiation. Leonard's voice stayed level. Full immunity for Victor's men, protection and provision for Olivia, Maria, and Charles. I'll serve the full sentence. 3 months became a blur of trials and media circuses. The mansion seized as evidence, transformed into a crime scene. Olivia stayed with Maria and Charles, learning what family meant beyond blood and violence. Marcus pleaded guilty. Life without parole. Salvatore fought until the evidence buried him, guilty on all counts. Leonard's public statement aired on every news channel. I was lied to, but I chose violence without verifying truth. To the families I destroyed, I cannot bring your loved ones back. But I can ensure restitution. His entire fortune transferred to a victim compensation fund. Only Olivia's education and care remained untouched. The courtroom felt like a cathedral of judgment the day Olivia testified. She described 7 years believing she was unwanted. The nightmares. The loneliness. Forgetting her father's face. Charles held her hand through every word. Even hardened criminals in the gallery wiped their eyes. The judge's gavel fell with finality. Leonard Castellano, 30 years to life for 53 counts of manslaughter. Leonard stood tall. I deserve more, but I'll use every day to try to earn redemption. Legal proceedings granted 3 years of supervised contact before incarceration. 3 years of grace to rebuild what had been stolen. Leonard taught Olivia about the legitimate businesses, established trusts, and education funds. Maria and Charles became permanent family, Charles's future secured alongside Olivia's. The mansion, returned after trials, transformed under Olivia's presence. She filled empty rooms with music and laughter. New roses bloomed in the garden, symbols of growth from scorched earth. She learned to bake lemon cakes, connecting to a mother she barely remembered. Charles helped her heal, navigate normal teenage life, reminded her that not all families were built on blood and violence. The night before Leonard reported to prison, they gathered for dinner. Olivia, Leonard, Maria, Charles, even Victor, released and starting legitimate work. Papa, Olivia said softly, tell me about Mama. Everything you remember. Leonard smiled through tears. She would have loved who you've become. They sat together in the mansion that was no longer a mausoleum. For one final evening, it was simply home. Tomorrow would bring consequences, payment for sins committed in grief's name. But tonight, Leonard had his daughter back, and she would be free. That was redemption enough. Prison transfer day arrived like an ending and a beginning. Leonard stood in the mansion foyer in his suit watching Olivia, 18 now, graduated early, college acceptance letters scattered across her desk upstairs. Charles stood beside her, the friend who'd stayed constant through 3 years of healing. Maria wiped tears, grateful for the life Leonard had secured. They walked to the rose garden where everything had shattered and begun to rebuild. 3 years wasn't enough time, Olivia whispered. Leonard touched her face gently. I'll have parole hearings. With good behavior, maybe 10 years instead of 30. I'll visit every week, write every day. Focus on your life, build something beautiful. That's how you honor your mother. He pressed a small key into her palm, the one to his desk's locked drawer. I wrote you letters every year you were missing. 7 years of grief and love and apology. Read them when you need to remember I never stopped. From behind his back, Leonard produced Buttons, the stuffed rabbit that had survived 7 years in storage. Olivia's breath caught. You saved this for me? It was all I had left of you. Now you have it back. Leonard found Charles on the terrace. You gave me my daughter back. Charles ducked his head. I just told the truth, sir. Sometimes the truth is the bravest thing we can speak. You're a hero, Charles. Leonard handed him papers. Scholarship fund in your name, for children who speak truth to power. Charles's voice broke. I'll watch over her, sir, like she's my sister. Victor drove to the prison, legitimate security work now his trade. Leonard watched the city pass, no longer his empire, no longer his territory, just the place where his daughter would build her life. Reporters swarmed the prison entrance. Do you regret the murders? Was it worth it? Leonard stopped, met their cameras. I destroyed innocent lives based on lies. No amount of time can repay that debt. But I found my daughter, and I'm grateful for every second I had with her. He walked through the gates with dignity, accepting punishment he'd earned. 10 years collapsed like a held breath. Olivia at 28 ran the reformed company, victim advocacy, now its mission. Charles worked beside her, lifelong partner in purpose. Maria lived comfortably in retirement, pride lighting her face when she watched them. The parole board convened. Victim families filled the room, some forgiving, some angry, all healing in their own time. My father became a monster because of lies, Olivia testified, but he chose to become human again. Parole granted, 10 years served, genuine remorse demonstrated. Condition? Continued restitution work, permanent separation from the criminal world. Prison gates opened. Leonard walked into sunlight after a decade of concrete and regret. Olivia waited with Charles, Maria, Victor, and others who'd become family. The embrace erased 10 years in a heartbeat. Welcome home, Papa. Where's home now? Wherever we are together. The mansion bloomed with roses Olivia had tended. Leonard knelt at his wife's memorial stone. I found her. I brought her home. I'm sorry it took so long. Olivia's hand settled on his shoulder. Mama would forgive you. I do. In the study, 2 portraits hung above the fireplace now. Olivia at 8, forever frozen. Olivia at 18 beside Charles, forever moving forward. Sometimes the smallest voices shatter the biggest lies. Sometimes truth spoken in innocence breaks through years of darkness. And sometimes redemption comes not from escape, but from facing what we've done and choosing to be better. The mansion lights glowed warm against evening sky, no longer a mausoleum. Finally, after 17 years of darkness, home.